what's your backstory? When did you start art? When did you think that it was going to be kind of your defining career?
I always intended to be an artist. I was telling you before, I wanted to be a comic book artist when I was a kid. All the way through high school, that was my plan. Eventually I ended up at art school, and finally when I was about like 20, I realized there's other things you can do with art than drawing comics. And I wasn't reading comics like for the first time in my life. At about 20 I had stopped. But yeah, I always intended to do art. I think everybody who knew me as a kid also expected me to do art because I was just always drawing. But yeah, it was always comic book related as a kid. I would just copy stuff out of comics. That's how I learned to draw. It's a pretty good way to learn how to draw people, even though they all look, unrealistically buff.
Yeah.
But I couldn't draw women because everything I drew out of comics was male superheroes because that's what I read. So when I got to art school and we had to draw and paint women, that was a real challenge. And now I prefer to paint women, but that took a while.
Oh wow, yeah, didn't think about that. I mean, once you start getting used to the anatomy of one figure type, I could see how you can kind of pigeonhole yourself in there.
They're pretty different, as you may be aware.
Yeah. So I would imagine as kids, comics and probably like Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Probably the biggest introductory, especially for us. Like now, animated features are all over the place. But I feel like when we were kids, we're roughly the same age. As far as movies goes, there wasn't a whole lot of animation outside of Disney, Snow White kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and you had to take what was on TV,
Yeah.
Whatever was on Saturday mornings was what you were watching. There's no on demand, none of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you had to take what you were given. Yeah. In comics, did you start tracing or just eyeballing it or?
Just trying to copy, not tracing, just eyeballing it.
Yeah. Nice.
And then I might change the character. I might make him Daredevil instead of Thor or something.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Or make my own character, but it was from, Iron Man or whatever.
Right. So what was your go-to comic?
Anything Marvel, even DC as a little kid, and then as I got older, Marvel, X-Men, and Teen Titans from DC in the 80s.
Oh, nice.
Those were the two big ones for a lot of kids, I think, in the 80s.
Yeah. I got briefly into comics. Buddy of mine, Eddie, is very much into comics, but the one that I read the most as a kid, I don't think it's still around. It's kind of an oddball one, but it was called Gru.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah, Sergio Aragonis, the guy who did he did a lot of stuff in Mad Magazine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I love
Gru
Mad
the
Magazine
Wanderer.
too. Yeah, that was a great one. I love that.
Yeah, Mad was huge for me. All those guys were I would copy that stuff too. Mort Drucker was one I copied a lot out of there, and Don Martin.
Okay.
Remember Don Martin from Mad Magazine?
Mm-hmm.
He had the long heads with the long pointy noses.
Right. Like the Spy versus Spy kind of.
That was another guy.
Okay.
That was Prohias, was I think his Spanish name or something.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I was totally into Mad Magazine.
Nice. So what would you consider like your graduation from that? What was the next step in line?
Well, in art school we started learning to paint and draw from life and getting good at actually, drawing what you see, painting what you see, which is very different than, making up a buff character, to be a superhero with unrealistic muscles. So yeah, that art school was great for me. I learned a ton. I had a lot of great teachers. Yeah, and then after art school, actually, I did illustration for a long time as a freelancer. I did magazine stuff and some advertising stuff. For most of the 90s, I did that. I thought that's what I was going to do, but I found it very frustrating and unfulfilling because you're just kind of trying to meet your clients' needs.
Yeah.
And half the time they don't know what they want, or there's
Right.
5 different opinions, and you waste a lot of time.
Too many guardrails.
Yep.
You can't be very creative in your own style.
Right. And too many chefs.
Right. Very true. Yep. Everybody's got to have a voice.
Right. So yeah, that was kind of the next phase for me, but I didn't like it. And then I was playing in bands actually in the 90s on the side, and much more of my creative energy was going into that. I really wanted to make it like as a musician, but that didn't happen. And then like late 90s, I started to see artists who had been illustrators doing like gallery work for the first time. Before that, they were two different worlds, really. You were either an artist or an illustrator, and you couldn't be both. But there were some galleries in LA where I was that were showing like illustrators and selling the work. And that was very like eye-opening and attractive to me. So I went to Japan for the first time in '98, and that was very visually inspiring. I came back with a lot of books and toys and ideas. And I did a painting just for myself for fun. My friend showed it to some gallery, and the owner there was into it, and she wanted to show more work like that. And so that was kind of the next step for me.
So cool.
Yeah.
So was it a transition in medium for you at that point?
I was still painting with oil paint. The whole time I was an oil paint guy. But the kind of the style changed, and what my inspirations were changed. But it was a whole different thing doing a painting for me. What do I want to paint versus, trying to do something for Nike or whatever. And to this day, 100 years later now, it's still, every time I kind of sit down to make something, it's what do I want to say, what do I want to paint, what do I want to draw,
Right. And that kind of freedom is priceless. It's kind of like in the music world, like maybe if you're, when you're in a band, you're doing covers or something, right? You're confined by what has already been created or what your audience is wanting to listen to in a generic sense, versus you're writing originals and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So once you break into that pattern where it's like, okay, I'm an artist for my art, not for somebody else's, art and confinement of how that needs to be.
Yep.
So I gotta imagine that at that point, it's a liberating change.
Totally. Yeah. It was the best feeling. I gave her 3 paintings in some group show, and she sold them all, and they were all just done for me. And yeah, I felt like, oh, this is it. And that's when I bailed on the band thing too.
Yeah.
Because, creating music with other people, you have to collaborate and compromise, and sometimes accept things you don't like.
Yeah. It's like being married to 4 or 5 people.
Right. Which was too similar to illustration for me. And suddenly I could paint whatever I wanted, and nobody could tell me what to do and sell it. So that was it for me. I was like, yeah. And I still love music, and I wish I was still in a band. But, yeah, it was very satisfying to finally just do my own thing.
Right.
And be able to make money from it.
I kind of feel like that in and of itself is the ultimate success. Like once you're able to sustain something doing your own deal, that's kind of it. Because the hackles, the chains go off. You're able to do your own stuff, live in your own existence. Even though, ebbs and flows of, the financial, whatever you get from it and life. But just the freedom alone. I mean, again, we're about the same age, and I kind of feel like there's a lot of things that I thought were important in my 20s, and you get a little bit older and you're like, no, just the freedom to do things is pretty much the golden ticket.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm very appreciative and grateful to have been able to do it for this long. At the same time, I didn't have a real job really ever before. So I don't know any other way. And a lot of people that I know that have real jobs are like, wow, that's so awesome. You're so lucky you can do that. And I know I am, and I appreciate it. And I usually look forward to Mondays where a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never really knew any other way. I've taught part-time, but I never had like a full-time job at a company that I was just doing for the money, like a lot of people do.
It's a bit of a trap.
Yeah, no, I am aware of it.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I've been very lucky. And, you know, I have a son, and like none of his friends' dads like realities or anything like ours, you know.
Right.
I work at home. My studio's in the house, so I'm around a lot.
Nice.
He gets to see what I'm doing, you know, especially before he was school age.
Yeah.
He could see it all day long. But even now, you know, he sees it in the morning and in the afternoons. And
Has he taken to it? Does he have any interest in painting?
oh yeah, he used to draw a lot. He doesn't draw as much anymore. He's 11 now. Unfortunately, he's discovered, you know, video games and YouTube and stuff. Yeah. But he does draw. He's very creative. He's a really good musician.
Nice.
But yeah, he has a drawing desk in my studio.
Yeah. You know, I'm not an expert by any means in kids. I have a couple. But it's interesting how some will take to exactly what you're doing, some won't. Or it could be delayed. Like they won't for a long time, and all of a sudden something clicks, and they do.
Yeah.
So it could be possibly slightly dormant while he's playing video games, but it could come with a vengeance later on.
Yeah, it could be. He definitely used to like comics and comic strips, and he used to make his own comic strips a lot.
Oh, nice.
That's definitely receded for now, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Well, I gotta imagine a lot of the themes that you paint could be interesting to a kid, you know. Not to, I love dark art, you know, but sometimes if a kid doesn't quite understand it or get anything that might get out of it, it's hard for them to kind of be attracted to it, you know. But I think a lot of your bright color work, and obviously, you know, some of your Star Wars related, which I love, but what kid doesn't love Star Wars, you know? So I'd imagine that he's at least passively admiring and being interested.
Oh, totally, and he's even helped me. He's given me ideas. But yeah, the pop culture stuff is great because he knows a lot of it, and if he doesn't, that's where he discovers it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had like one with a bunch of villains in it, and you know, they're all kind of consuming some candy or drink or ice cream or whatever. And he's the one who gave me the idea for Darth Vader to have chocolate milk. I was asking him, I was like, I don't know what Darth Vader should have here. I already did a different one with Darth Vader with a cookie. And he suggested chocolate milk, which I guess we had at the time that he used to drink. And it just was perfect. I don't know why, but it's hilarious. Yeah. You know, the juxtaposition is just too funny.
Definitely.
He's had a lot of input in the work like that. So yeah, he's been part of it for sure.
So when you approach doing something like that, like some artists might be very deliberate in meaning behind something. Like, okay, if he's drinking chocolate milk, I have a reason in my head of why I'm doing that. And then some artists would be like, I'm going to plant this purposely to just stir the thinker of who's looking at it. To get them thinking.
I do both. It varies. You know, I've done a bunch of paintings like that with a bunch of heads of characters consuming different foods, and it's a mix. Sometimes the character, what they're eating or drinking, relates to them somehow, and sometimes it's purely visual. I gave Thanos like a Milky Way, I think it was, you know, because the galaxy and all his whole thing.
Right.
I did a Game of Thrones ones where I had the Jaime and Cersei Lannister, the brother and sister, who are also lovers. Both had Tic Tacs, breath fresheners.
Nice.
So that was clearly related to their relationship.
Right.
And I had like Theon Greyjoy. I don't know if you saw Game of Thrones, but so Theon had just a hot dog, no bun, just the wiener.
He could use it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It relates to the story. Spoiler alert. But then some other characters just have an ice cream cone because it just looks funny.
Yeah.
To have you know, Daenerys with an ice cream cone just running down her fingers, melting.
Right.
That was purely visual. So it's a mix. You know, I think as an artist, visuals should be first.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, concept and content's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just purely visual and there's nothing behind it, it's not interesting. It's still not going to be that interesting, even if it looks beautiful. But if it looks terrible and has some brilliant idea, I think it's also not successful. So I think for me, the first most important thing is it visually compelling? Is it going to suck someone in? And then if I can start to add in, like the reason for, in these particular pieces we're talking about people eating stuff, but in other images that are more complicated, it's still starts with the visual, and then as I build the image, the meaning starts to grow on its own.
Right.
That's usually how I work. I don't work from like, oh, I have this concept that I want to. I have tried that. It doesn't work for me. Some artists, that works for them.
Yeah.
For me, it's all visual. I got to have a visual starting point I like. Mm-hmm. And then as I build it out, the meaning almost starts to reveal itself. And then that tells me, that suggests what the next element I add might be.
Yeah. And does it work that way for not just the meaning, but the visuals? Because a lot of your work is very complex. There'll be 20 characters in one scene. Do you start with, okay, this is who I'm going to start with, and then you slowly add in those? Or do you already have, I know exactly who I'm going to fill this room with?
Well, like that Joker's one on the cover of my book, Prison of the Mind, it's the Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix Joker together. They're in this little room. Yeah, and they're holding hands. So that whole thing started from two things. One of them was an antique photo of two guys in that exact pose, holding hands. And I had been playing around with that in Photoshop, trying different characters, and nothing was quite popping yet. And then I when I had the idea that they're going to be the two different Jokers, the whole thing started to fall into place. It was kind of one of the most magical ones for me in terms of process. So I had that. I had the pose. I had the two Jokers holding hands. I really liked it. I tried them outside. Immediately I knew, no, they're in a room, and it's a small room. It's an uncomfortably small room. Mm-hmm. It's a crooked room, even. And every element was like that. Like, should they be, what should be on the walls? Some weird, crazy wallpaper.
Yep.
And then what else? Like pictures. What pictures would be on the walls? Stuff related to clowns and or Batman. Like, just made sense. And then they're in a pile of pills, and there's pills falling down. I think I tried a few different floating elements just for the visual thing. Sometimes I'll do floating like circles and bubbles and weird stuff that's just purely decorative. Mm-hmm. And I was trying that with them, and then at some point it clicked for me. Oh, it's medication. These are crazy guys, so what if it was pills just falling down like from heaven? And that immediately worked. And then like, oh yeah, they're knee deep in pills already. They're so over, medicated on whatever. Mm-hmm. And so just like that, everything started to click once I had the main core thing was these two, can I curse?
Yeah,
these two crazy motherfuckers, right? Yeah. It's just, it all made sense. And so that clapping monkey is on fire. Just, I tried a few elements there, and I was like, what could I put there that's crazy and annoying? And somehow it just like, that was perfect to me. Those monkeys just drive you crazy. And,
iconic for a horror image too, I feel like. I don't remember what movie it was in, but very. It fits. Chaos. It just speaks chaos.
Right. So that one just kind of each step led to the next step so smoothly. It's often not that smooth, but yeah, I didn't start out that piece thinking, oh, I love the two movies they're in, and I want to do a piece with them together. It wasn't like that at all.
Yeah.
It just started with a very visual thing, which was this old photo of two guys holding hands.
Do you ever change course midway, like decide that the palette is wrong and start to change the colors or anything like that?
I do my comps in Photoshop,
Oh,
and I get very finished level, so I don't paint it until I'm happy with the
Right.
color in my comp.
right.
So very rarely do I get the comp done, get it on canvas, start painting, and then want to change something. Occasionally it happens. It's not usually the color, it's usually an element,
Mm-hmm.
like a face or something, and then I'll just sand it down and figure out what I want to put there instead.
Nice.
But that's maybe 5% of the time.
Do you ever, like, let's say you're gonna make a print, right? Do you just do it all in Photoshop for the print for the high res, or do you paint it and then scan it for the prints?
Yeah, pretty much all my work is painted in oil paint, and then I just get a really high resolution capture that I can make prints from.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after you really started to hone your skills and you got art in your gallery in Japan sold, about how long after were you teaching? Because you had a stint at university teaching, right? Art school.
Yeah, actually, I started teaching when I was doing illustration. So I was teaching before I started doing the gallery thing. I started
Nice.
teaching in '94, just part time. But yeah, I started doing that pretty young. That was super fun. I loved it. I did that for 11 years. Yeah, college, art school, the same school I went to, Art Center, and I met a lot of great talented artists there who are now like great successful working artists like Jeff Soto, a whole bunch of people, and a lot of them are in the entertainment business now too.
That's an honor to
Yeah.
have taught those people.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Yeah, it's exciting, especially because like as an artist, you're alone a lot of the time. So it was nice to have a regular couple days a week where I'm going to be around other artists, and I would always bring in books of like art that inspired me, and I would have each student have 1 week where they'd bring in stuff that inspired them, so we could all kind of share
Oh, nice.
with each other and turn each
Yeah.
other on to like new artists that maybe we didn't know about.
That's kind of a rare environment, that vast of a collaborative group to talk about stuff. You don't find that much else. Like in the professional world, nobody's going to really get in a big group and start talking about ideas, right?
Yeah, no, it was really great, especially when the kids were great. You know, sometimes you'd have a class where people weren't motivated and it could be a drag, but sometimes I'd have a great group with just lots of talented, motivated kids, and that was the best.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you find it did anything for your confidence level? And I say this mostly from my perspective because it feels like I could be at a certain point in any given skill, but as soon as I turn from being sort of the student, the learner, even if I'm self taught, and I start teaching somebody else, something happens where my confidence is like, I can do this because I just taught them. I just brought them up. And so that's been my experience with my brief stint in spreading, any knowledge that I have. Do you see that at all with when you were teaching?
I don't think there was really a confidence issue. What was cool about it was like, even though I wasn't much older than the students usually, my aesthetic was a little bit older than a lot of theirs, and it was enlightening to see when they'd bring in work, like what they liked, and how that was a little different from like what I liked and what I had come up liking. And I think that's important for artists, and I miss that. I haven't taught for a while now, not college, and I do feel like some artists, as they get older, you can kind of get out of touch with like what kids think is cool and like visually, if you're not around that. And so I may be more out of touch now because I'm not teaching at college level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a cool kind of benefit. I don't feel like confidence-wise I don't remember any difference, but yeah, it was neat to be introduced to stuff that I would not otherwise have been aware of, and to discover, oh yeah, like a lot of people like this look or something, that I.
Yeah. Do you ever style hop in any way, thinking maybe if I try, cubism, if I just try this different style but adapt it to what I'm doing, I might be able to find new inspiration or find something? Or is it just what you're doing, you got your style, and now you're looking for your next idea?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually probably, I could answer that for 10 minutes. It's so complicated.
Yeah.
But I don't really feel like I have a very distinct style. Some people say I do, but I don't personally think I do. I'm thinking of one artist I'm not going to name now who I love, but he's iconic for a certain kind of character. More than half his work involves a certain kind of character in it, and you just know it's him. And it's always painted the same way, and the color palette's very similar, kind of subdued, and it's extraordinary level of skill, and he does very well. And I envy the kind of, when he probably sits down and come up with the next idea, half the time he knows this character's going to be in it and already solves so many problems. That's not me. I don't have that. So when I sit down, it could be anything. And sometimes, I do want to kind of do something stylistically a little different, but you can't go too different because I have an audience that likes me for what I do in this realm. And in one of my first shows, I did change style very dramatically, and it really alienated a lot of my audience. And I learned, like, oh, okay, if you're going to evolve, it has to be in steps.
In the pop culture realm, and when you're thinking about something to do, is there anything that stands out from a societal standpoint that you're like, I always have to target this concept, or is it just different things that you pull for inspiration of what might be the motive behind a painting?
My whole thing is just like to paint what I'm interested in. Whether it's a character or characters from pop culture, like Spider-Man or Star Wars or something, or just zombie people staring at their phones, like that's less pop culture and more like societal commentary, but it's important to me because I feel like it's reflective of the world we're living in, So I kind of mix between those two realms, and I do try to mix them together too. So, right, a lot of the pop culture characters will often have, candy or Starbucks or whatever. So there's sort of the commentary on consumerism and all that, while also paying homage to the characters from pop culture that I'm interested in. I don't usually paint characters that I don't care about or that I dislike, I don't paint characters I dislike. If it's characters I don't really know, but if somebody commissions me, maybe I'll paint them. But I like to have a personal connection and interest. It's what makes it fun for me.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that for sure. How much does emotion or trying to tug emotion out of the viewer play into it? Like, for example, if you're writing a song, right, it can definitely be some sort of contextual meaning behind the lyrics and stuff. But musically, you might say, I want to evoke energy, or I want somebody to feel sad when they're listening to this because it's a breakup song. How much does emotion play into your pieces, if at all?
Yeah, not much. And I make music too. I occasionally write songs. I used to make up a lot of stuff on piano when I was a kid, but I play guitar and I'll write songs sometimes and record them. I find that, like, musically, if I make something up, I'm also I'm not thinking, oh, I want to make a sad song. It's just whatever I start messing around with, maybe it comes out, it sounds sad, or it sounds pretty and happy, or it just sounds heavy and aggressive. And if I like it, then I just go with it, and it's pretty much the same thing with the art. I just mess around with images until I find something that I find interesting. And usually the kind of mood conveyed is pretty ambiguous. I don't really paint people like laughing and smiling occasionally, but they're usually pretty neutral, and they're also not like crying. I prefer a kind of ambiguous neutrality that can be interpreted by the viewer.
I was just going to say that. I think one of the cool things about your work is it does have that neutrality to it. So I can look at the piece that's on our guitar, And we were just talking sort of offline for the listeners about AI and how we could potentially go to a utopian or a dystopian existence, depending on how things go. But looking at your work, there's enough neutrality in it to where you can say, okay, what's going on here? Am I supposed to feel excited about aliens coming to save humans
Or women.
or or are they taking our women, and what's going on there? And the ambiguity I think really helps somebody like me to appreciate it in the slight shade that I see it. The very next guy might see it a totally different way.
Yeah.
But in very pointed pieces that almost instruct you how to interpret, you're definitely putting people in a tighter spot, and good or bad otherwise. That's what yours has, I think, across the board.
I think that's what's interesting about our work, at least to me. And sometimes people ask me, what does this mean? And I never want to, even if I have a firm idea in my head, I don't want to tell people, because the whole pleasure of having somebody else look at your work is what's their interpretation, and it should be open to interpretation. I have a few pieces I did within the last 10 years where there's a couple, and one of them is transparent and see-through, and people ask me a lot about those pieces, like is she dead, or what does this mean, and when I say how do you read it, I've gotten so many various interpretations. It's great, and it's exactly kind of proves the idea to me of why I don't want to lay it all out, note for note, obvious, because then it would just lose all of that pleasure of having you spend time investigating the image. Hopefully you find it interesting enough you want to keep looking at it, and what does it say to you? That's the kind of work I like to look at. Stuff that's not obvious, not pedantic, it's not hitting me over the head with the message. There's a place for propaganda art. Shepard Fairey's got a lot of political propaganda art. He's the best at it. The Obama hope posters, iconic.
Right. Yep.
Nobody's better at that, but that's not what I do. I'm not trying to push an agenda, trying to make an interesting image, and whatever it means to you, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's going to mean something else to him or her or them,
Yeah. No, I think that's there's no art in general being subjective. There's no right or wrong in how you approach that. But I love that approach because it's symbiotic, right? It's okay, I've done the work here, but now you can do your own work of how you want to interpret it,
exactly.
how you want to see it. So
yeah,
it's very cool. All right, so being a musician, guitar player, you mentioned playing bass. How much does that play into your work at all? Does it have any influence? Do you get inspiration maybe by a song and say, I can kind of do a concept in paint over this?
Yeah, I have a few paintings that are titled after phrases from songs. A couple Radiohead songs in particular. I have one called Bittersweet Distractor, and that's a lyric from one of their songs from a while back. Yeah, there's another one that there was one that are lyrics that sounded like the Devil's Rainbow, but it's not. It's a whole other thing. I remember looking at it, but I preferred the Devil's Rainbow to whatever the actual line was, and that gave me kind of an idea for painting, and that's the title of the piece. So yeah, music's definitely inspirational to me sometimes. Probably played a little more of a role in my work some years ago than it does now. I still listen to music, but not quite as often when I'm creating as I used to. I'll often just play around in quiet now. I don't know if it's because I'm older or because I had a kid and I like quiet. I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, that's possible.
But lyrics of music, if you're creating and you're listening to stuff with lyrics, they're going to influence your process. So if you want that, that's great. Often I will listen to music that's instrumental, movie soundtrack stuff. I love this guy, Clint Mansell, who did a bunch of movie soundtracks. Moon is one of my favorite movies. I love that soundtrack. And even that's influential because it's got a certain mood but it's more wide open because there's no words, so you can still kind of go off. But yeah, music's a huge part of my life, and I'm very aware of how much music can influence your mood.
Yeah, for sure.
Or change your mood. Like sometimes if I'm angry, in a bad mood, and I feel like listening to something aggressive and heavy, and I put it on, and then I realize, actually, this isn't not making me feel better, it's making me feel more angry.
Right.
So actually, a different kind of music can help me kind of change my frame of mind. It's amazing to me when I hear people who are not musical and who say, yeah, I don't know anything about music, and I like it, but I don't have strong taste. I'm like the opposite of that person.
Yeah.
I have very particular taste in music, and I'm very opinionated, and always have been. Very important to me.
Yeah, me too. I have to watch what I say sometimes, because sometimes I get a little too pointed with my opinions. So I agree with you completely. I went through a period where in the car, instead of listening to music, I started listening to audiobooks, right? Like, I'm too busy to read anything. I'm just going to listen to an audiobook. make use of my commute that way. And what I had noticed is over this brief time, I just started to get more irritable. And it wasn't until I switched back to music and realized that music was therapeutic and a release for me that I was like, wow, I need music in my life. I can't cut it out.
Yeah.
So
do you have certain songs that you can't listen to without singing along?
Oh, yeah. And there's certain songs on certain albums, like, there's probably a million, but like, I love Chevelle. That's one of the bands I love, right? There's a song on Hats Off to the Bull, the very end, Clones. I can listen to that whole album straight through, but that song, Clones, I'm repeating 3 times before I'm done with it. Just back. I love the way that song in particular starts. The verse and chorus end up flipping on its head, and the chorus becomes a verse, and the verse becomes a chorus. It's just, I love this song. So yeah, it's repeat every time.
I'm that way with Invincible on Fear Inoculum.
Yeah.
And there's a Jeff Buckley song, The Last Goodbye, that I cannot listen to without singing along to it. And it's really hard to sing. I'm not a good singer, and he was the best. But yeah, just so powerful. Just makes it come out of me.
Yeah.
No matter who I'm with, I don't care if I'm going to be embarrassed. I just have to sing along.
Yeah.
There's it's more powerful, I think, than visual art, music. Music, it's very few paintings, I think, that can make a person cry. But
True.
we know there's tons of songs that can make you cry.
Very much so.
If you're attuned to music, like most people are, but not everyone.
And I think music has the ability to hit multiple senses. So there's that. It feels more powerful because of that, multisensory. It's not just your ears, you're envisioning things like you do with a painting, kind of, but it's very literal because you have the visual in front of you in a painting. But like I just started, I have a possibly bad habit of watching TV and falling asleep, like movies. But instead of watching and falling asleep, I got these little headphone things right now. I'm sorry, I'm getting away from the microphone. This little headphone thing that you sleep with. So now I'm just listening to the movie, and it changes everything about the movie. Because now you're also not only hearing it in a different way and you're imagining the movie real, not perfectly, you've seen it before, I have a lot of times, but you're imagining what's going on. But then the other thing too is most Foley in movies is undetectable, right? North Shore, a movie I love, right? I watched that over and over again. And the ocean scenes when they're in the water, you hear the waves splashing and splashing around, and you think nothing of it. You listen to it on headphones, you're like, oh yeah, that's a Foley guy splashing water in a bucket. So it kind of changes. It changes how you perceive it. And so I feel like that kind of multisensory, the ear and what you hear is playing into what you visualize. It's naturally kind of more powerful because of that. But there's a lot of power in visual art, man. So
it's powerful, but it's just different to music, and I do think ultimately music's a little more universally powerful. especially these days. But yeah, I'm
Sure.
not saying visual art doesn't have power. It definitely
Right.
does. It's
Yeah.
hugely important to me. Like, blows my mind when I go to somebody's house and they don't have anything on the wall, or they just have like the most boring, generic garbage. And it's like, you're okay to live with this every day? Like, really? And a lot of my son's friends come over to our house and they're like, it's like a gallery or something. And it's just, it never really occurred to me. It's just, what I have up, what I'm going to look at every day is so important to me.
Yeah.
But not everybody's that way. A lot of people are not that way. Most dentists are not that way.
Right. True.
All dentists. Never seen
Yeah.
cool art in the dentist's office yet. Even though a lot of dentists are artistic. I've had so many dentists tell me they used to paint or draw or sculpt when they find out I'm an artist.
Oh, nice.
There's some connection. But I get it. You don't want to have anything weird on the wall when you're drilling to somebody's mouth.
Yeah.
You want them to see a mountain or a flower so they don't freak out.
Very true. Very true. And there's almost, the dental tools are very sculptor-esque. So
Right, yeah, true, absolutely. No, there's a relationship with sculpture, very natural, and the dexterity involved, so it makes sense on a certain level, yeah.
True. The dental community is going to love our bashing of
I'm not bashing them. I have friends that are dentists.
Yeah.
I do think they could have better decor, and it should be Alex Gross decor.
Agreed. Go to alexgrossart.com.
Artofalexgross.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
And improve your waiting rooms. So what do you think, what kind of creative lessons or creative processes do you think musicians and visual artists share, if at all?
Well, I don't know how a lot of musicians work, but I have a feeling a lot of them are basically like what I described earlier and what we talked about before is, if you're a guitarist or piano player, you just mess around with it. I used to do that all the time as a kid on my mom's grand piano, and sometimes a cool idea emerges and, a song can develop from that. That's a lot like an artist who keeps a sketchbook, who just doodles different ideas when they come into their head. And then you can look through it later and pick out the stuff you want to develop and discard the stuff you don't, So I think that's very similar. I think a lot of creative process is probably organic that way. I don't know anything about like dance, for example, but I would imagine if you're a dancer and you have all of this repertoire of moves and stuff, if you're trying to choreograph something new, you probably just start dancing, put on music that you want to listen to, and try to experiment, right? And probably something's going to emerge from your repertoire because you're so good that you want to develop. So I think sculpture maybe is a little harder that way because you have a lot of limitations, but I still think most of the arts probably emerge organically that way. Even writing, creative writing, like, yeah, okay, maybe you start with a baseline. I want to write about whatever, a 15-year-old boy, going through puberty. That's sure. But even with that, you're going to just start to develop ideas, I just think in the creative process, in general, editing comes later, and you should just explore everything at first, and then as you start to get a series of options, that's when you can start to make choices and refine. So I think all the creative arts have that in common, or should,
Sure. Yeah, there's got to be at least some connection of like, sometimes I'll listen to a song and I might get an idea like, oh, this is very Haunted Mansion-y in the feeling that it's given me. And so then all of a sudden, if you're like, oh, I'd like to replicate that feeling in a visual art, you could just move from that simple concept or something. So I would imagine, I'm not a visual artist in the sense that I can just go and translate my thoughts and moods and emotions into something like that. But I can definitely see what you're saying and how that just could translate over. It's just it's a whole interesting world, and obviously we can't all be great artists, great musicians, great all these things. But it's great talking to you, just getting into this world of okay, how does this visual artist think that's different from me, similar from me, but he can actually do something with it versus just it being an idea and then going away, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think most of the creative process can be demystified. A lot of people are like really curious about where do you get your inspiration from, and they think there's some divine magic happening, and maybe that happens sometimes, but for me, and I think for a lot of creatives, the big thing is putting in the time. Just do the work. If you don't feel inspired, try anyway. Maybe nothing will come out that day, but try stuff, and just don't edit yourself at the beginning. It's very easy for everyone. We've all like been in the place where you have some idea and you start to develop it, whether it's music or art or anything, writing, and immediately the inner critic comes out and goes, that sucks, what are you doing? Right. And you give up. Yeah. You know, battling through that, pushing through, shutting down that voice, and just going with your inspiration. And when it's the right time to refine it and edit it and then decide if it's worth pursuing or not, then you cross that bridge. But that's not the first place. And I think that's the place where a lot of people run into problems, and a lot of people say, oh, I used to love to draw, but I gave it up, or I used to write music, but I stopped, or I used to play piano. It's really, there's nothing magical. The magic is putting in the time and the work. So like I'm just a very workman-like artist. I'm no genius, you know. I have some natural ability, but I've worked very hard, and if I don't have an idea, I keep trying anyway. And yeah, maybe I'll take that day off and do exercise, go hike or whatever, but you know, I'll try again the next day until something happens. And I think, you know, your favorite band, same thing, you know, maybe they took more time off, but there's plenty of discarded song ideas from every band out there too, you know. So
that's actually great insight, especially for somebody who is kind of an up and coming artist. You know, if you hit that point where you just feel some sort of uncomfortableness, or like you said, it sucks. So your advice for an upcoming artist: power through it, finish it no matter what. Or like, what would you? And a second part of this question would be: at what point in your development as an artist, early on, would you say felt like the turning point? Is it the level of detail? Is it your work with anatomy and the accuracy of it? Like, at what point did you turn a corner and say, I can do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no turning point. It's just sort of been a gradual evolution. I remember somebody told me once on one painting I did, an artist friend of mine said they really loved this piece, and he said like, oh, I feel like it's a real kind of pinnacle for you. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. I like how it came out. I don't see it that way, but I'm glad he thought it was one of my best pieces. But yeah, your first question there, yeah, that's what I said earlier is really so important, and I try to teach my son this too. Just silence the inner critic in the beginning for sure. There will be a time for that person to speak out later, but not in the beginning of anything creative. In the beginning, you need to support yourself to do the thing you feel inspired to do or that you want to do, and you can't let the negative voice shut you down. And it's so easy to. So you have to have a level of self-confidence and self-love to push through that. You know, and that's a huge difference from one personality type to another. And even your most successful heroes have had those days where they're like, I suck. Nothing. I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, I've totally had that. And whoever your favorite musician or artist is, they have that, but they don't let it stop them. Yeah. They push through it. And like I said, some ideas don't work out. You know, eventually you do get to a point with it where you just have to like make a decision. But that's why it's cool for me. I have that folder on the computer of ideas, and some ideas I played with for a while and I just paused them, but they're still there. It's like a digital sketchbook, I might come back to it a year or two or three later,
Yeah.
and it turns into something cool when it's ready. And many ideas are there that never get fully finished, never turn into a painting. So,
Yeah.
but it's just like having a big fat sketchbook. It's all there,
Yeah.
and you can go through it whenever you want. You know.
I feel like that's a lesson that pretty much anybody can take away from too, because I think, we all have to conform and behave ourselves, so we're over self-regulating all the time. Checks and balances, like, oh, don't do this because you shouldn't. It's going to disturb the peace in some way, right? So we self-regulate all the time for any endeavors that we do. Art, you're talking about that, where you're already saying, no, it sucks. It's not going to be accepted or liked by anybody. You have to overcome that. And I think that's something that everybody can take away, no matter what they do, art or not.
And we all want to compare ourselves to others, especially in this social media environment. You can't help it, right?
No.
Everybody's posting about how great their life is and blah blah blah, and how hot they are and rich, and so yeah, you want to make an image or a song, immediately start comparing the song you're writing to the song you really want it to be as good as, and of course it's not, and you're like, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, comparison is there's some famous phrase, I forget, but comparison is like the enemy of the good or whatever. I don't remember how it goes. But yeah, I really, really try not to compare myself to others. It's funny, I have a few artist friends that are very famous and successful, and I don't follow them on social media because when I saw like their posts, it makes me feel this like jealous envy that I hate. It's gross. I don't want to feel that way. I'm happy for their success. They earned it, and their work's great. But yeah, if I turn on whatever the app and I see it, it's like I don't want that to influence my mood. So I just don't I don't follow them, and sometimes they follow me.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I want to like follow them back, but I'm very cautious about my frame of mind, and anything that makes me feel emotions like envy that I don't want to feel, that are just harmful, I really try to avoid. And so I don't use social media very much as a observer. I use it to share my stuff. Inevitably I'll scroll a little bit on Instagram, but I really try to catch myself and stop quickly. But yeah, like sometimes I've done conventions where I set up a booth and I'm selling stuff. And I also don't like that environment for the same reason, because I'll see another booth that seems busier than mine, and immediately my ego is like comparing. And I don't want to be that person, So it's very hard if you're in a commercial environment where everybody's selling their thing at a bunch of tables to not compare yourself.
Very
But
true.
in general, yeah, that voice, that critic that compares and judges, it's not helpful. We all have it. Some of us have it more than others. I know people who have it to a debilitating level and they never achieve anything.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, Sometimes I like to think of it, I think my mom told me this, or somebody told me a long time ago, but like, we all catch ourselves sometimes. You do something and you say to yourself, I'm so stupid, something really negative and mean. Mm-hmm. Would you talk to your best friend that way? You'd never say that to your buddy or your partner. Mm-hmm. So why would you treat yourself so shitty? So, I try to catch myself there when I'm in that zone. But again, we all have that, but it's just not helpful. So
very true.
If you try and just focus on the helpful parts and let the not helpful ones go to the side, that's the best way to create stuff. I always drew as a kid, and I always made music, and I got more notice for drawing than I did for music. I wasn't some musical genius or anything. I just liked to mess around on the piano a lot, and then eventually started playing bass as a teenager. But drawing, I was better than my peers because I drew all the time, and I copied stuff from comics so I could kind of make up figures before my friends could. So everybody thought I'd be a professional artist. So I think I had a certain amount of self-confidence and ego in the art world, which probably helped me later, because when I got to art school for the first time when I was 19 or 20, I discovered that I was not in the better portion of my peers. I was in the bottom portion. I was suddenly around great artists, and I was not that great.
Wow.
I had just been the big fish in the little pond. Now
Right.
I was in the big pond.
Yeah.
And so I did not get bummed out. I just upped my game, and
Nice.
I moved up quickly because I had enough self-confidence to just know I could do it. But I just needed to put in the work, and this was the first time I was like going to draw from life and learn to paint and all that stuff. And I had great teachers. If I was doing that in music, maybe I wouldn't have had the same level of confidence because I didn't grow up feeling like I'm really, really great musician like I did with art. But I still think I would have been fine because I love music and I knew I had talent for it too, and I didn't have to be the best, because music's like art. They're both of them like being the best technical, technician doesn't mean you're the best artist or musician. I have a good story actually on this.
Okay.
When I was a young guy in my early 20s, my brother worked on a video for Brian May.
Okay.
After Queen ended, after Freddie Mercury died, Brian May did a solo record. My brother's friend directed his video, and my brother did a rock climbing scene on it as an extra, as Brian May, because they had the same hairstyle. So I got to meet Brian.
Nice.
Super nice guy. This was in LA, and he let me play his guitar, and somehow in talking, he told me he had just seen Joe Satriani the night before in a concert in LA. I forget how it came about, but I just told him how great he was and how much I loved his music, and he said thank you, and he said he had just seen Joe Satriani, and like he was basically comparing himself to him and how much better Joe Satriani was as a guitar player.
Right.
And I was astonished, and I just said, I can't name one song by him. Like everybody knows he's a great guitar player, but you're a legend, and like your music moves people and will always and that guy is just a technician.
Yeah.
And well, maybe he was just being humble, but I think there was a little insight into that same self-critic we all have. Even the legends have it, right? He was like comparing himself to this brilliant technician who doesn't have the gift for songwriting and never found the band and whatever the magic that Queen had. So that was like, wow. So yeah, you don't have to be the best at drawing or with color. If you want to make art, and don't compare yourself to me or Rembrandt or whoever you think is good. Just do your thing. There's a place for everyone, and
there's always a style or something that even the great ones can't necessarily replicate, right? Because it's a little bit out of bounds. And I agree with you. I always sort of categorize music in that instance, that there is music as a sport and music as an art. And the dexterity and the precision is sort of, and speed is music as a sport, whereas the style and grace is music as an art.
Exactly.
Two different things completely.
Yeah, none of the Beatles was the best at their instrument,
Right.
by far.
Right.
Clapton comes in on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, does this beautiful solo that none of them could do. But honestly, I think the song would have still been great, even if George did the solo himself, and he did plenty of great solos on other stuff. But yeah, they were never technically the best band, So same thing with Pete Townsend. Not the greatest guitar player from a technical point of view,
Right.
but his solos are tasteful, the songwriting is amazing. Jimmy Page is pretty great, but pretty sloppy. Not as good as Jeff Beck, but I don't listen to Jeff Beck.
Right.
I still listen to Zeppelin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pink Floyd, yes. Gilmour is a brilliant technician, and Rick Wright was. Roger Waters, no. Nick Mason, really no. Still one of my favorite bands. They wrote the best stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, it's interesting how that, and wherever you fit is wherever you fit, but don't try to put yourself as a square peg in a round hole, right?
Yeah,
find
totally.
Find what works for you. Do you ever experience? There's been a few guitarists that have said this, not just guitarists, musicians in general, that they feel sometimes once they get into this musical zone, it's almost as if the ideas are coming from somewhere else and they're being channeled through them. It's almost like because their subconscious is creating it or whatever. Do you ever feel that with painting, to where you're starting to head in a certain direction and you're not really, it's almost subconscious that you're getting? Is there any of that going on?
Yeah, not as much as I would like, and probably not as much as someone who's more like an expressionistic painter, who's literally just going in front of their easel and just starting to go with no plan and really trying to get in that zone and flowing.
Right.
I'm sure Jackson Pollock probably felt like he got in that zone, even though I'm not a huge fan of Jackson Pollock. But any expressive kind of painter, it's much more exploratory and about that. But like I talked about with that Joker's painting, Prison of the Mind, when I was developing that image, it really just flowed. As I kind of found each step led to the next step in a way that I wish happened more often. It's very hard to get there. But like I explained, I solve a lot of the problems on my images and my comps digitally, so that when I'm painting, I'm really just kind of executing a lot of stuff that I already made decisions about earlier, and maybe altering the colors a bit and refining some things, but I'm not usually trying to come up with some new inspiration once I have a brush in my hand.
Yeah.
I already know where I'm supposed to go, more or less.
Right. And I'd imagine, the detail and complexity of your work doesn't allow for that as much. Like
Right.
Jackson Pollock, for example. However his last stroke went, his next one is maybe balancing that one or something. So you're playing on your last iteration of what you just did. Whereas I think it's far too complex to just kind of.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really a stylistic thing, and I think music is much more like expressive painting, where you can, whatever, if you're at a piano or guitar, if you're in F minor, it's very easy for your thumb to go down here and see if this chord fits and works, even if you're not some great musician who knows the F minor scale perfectly. Does a D major work in there? I don't know. Let's hear it. So yeah, that's easy to explore in music, and when you start to find those certain chord patterns that work, they can lead to the next idea. I definitely think music is much more that kind of thing, where you can get in the flow state more than visual art, at least the kind of visual art I do. Yeah.
Is there a dream collaboration still on your bucket list? Like maybe you want to work with another band, or you want to work with a particular artist to do a collab, or you want to do something?
I like my musical heroes. I don't think what few are still actually active, like Pink Floyd's not a band anymore. So, I'm not going to do a Pink Floyd poster because there's no Pink Floyd.
Right.
It'd be cool to do a poster for David Gilmour or something, but I don't see the connection there. There's no.
Yeah.
So, Radiohead's still a band, but my look it's not their thing. So as much as I would say, yeah, I'd love to do something for Radiohead, it's not going to happen. I know their aesthetic. It's cool. It's not me at all.
Yeah.
See, I can't think of anybody like musically that's quite my aesthetic that I'm really into, but there's plenty of bands that I like, or some that I might not even know about, who it might fit really well and it'd be fun to collaborate with. The Tool thing just happened because they asked to see some images, and they chose two that I already had, so I didn't do them specifically for posters for them. They already existed, and we made like just a couple of minor modifications. Like one of them had a Coca-Cola billboard in the back, so they changed that to something themselves. Their designer guy did it. So, and that's actually, it was kind of cool. I didn't have to run a painting idea by somebody to get it approved. They already saw the finished images and approved them and liked them. So I used to be an illustrator, and that was all you do. And you're always getting people to tell you to change stuff, and it's no fun. It's not why I'm an artist, and I didn't like it. So I don't barely do any illustration anymore. And usually when I do fine art painting commissions for people, I get to do what I want, and they get like a little input, and I might put a character or something in, or put them in the painting. But what they want is what I do, kind of my magic, for lack of a better word. So if that's what you want, let me do my thing.
Right.
If you're going to art direct me, you're probably not going to get the magic that you like.
Right.
So yeah, I know a lot of artists. Alex Kuno does a ton of posters for Tool. I imagine he probably has a very wide berth and gets to pretty much do what he wants, because by now they know what he does.
Right.
And they like his visual language, and it's great for them. But yeah, I would not. I would be worried about creating a new image for any band or anybody. I would worry about being over art directed, which I'm just not into. Actually, yeah, I remember ages ago when Zeppelin had like a compilation of greatest hits or something long after they were done. I don't remember if it was before or after the O2 reunion concert thing, but it was around then, and I got to do some comps for them. And they were my favorite band growing up, so this was a dream gig. And just knowing that like Robert and probably Jimmy were going to see what I did was really cool. They didn't end up picking me. Shepard Fairey ended up being the one that did the image, and it's the Zeppelin, and it's in Shepard Fairey's black and red simple style, and it's a good cover. But yeah, that would have been a dream project, but I didn't get far enough to possibly be art directed on it. I just did sketches and wasn't like picked. But yeah, I did feel a lot of like pressure on that one, because it was like, that was probably the dream thing of my life, would be to have a Zeppelin album cover. I would have never thought, because they broke up when I was 12.
Right.
But yeah, so that ship has sailed.
But that would be if you could produce a poster for anybody, it would be Zeppelin, sounds like.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to play together again either. Even with Jason, Robert doesn't want to do it. But yeah, if they did, and I could do a poster for them, I could die.
Yeah, you'd nail it, I'm sure. What do you got going on? You got galleries coming up?
Yeah, so I have a gallery show in New York at this place called Krause Gallery, Krause, and that's in September, I think the 19th. And it's a solo show. It's going to be a little smaller than my past solo shows, but it's still just me, and it's been a long time since I did a solo show, so it's exciting. It's a lot of work, and I'm doing like a mix of stuff, some oil paintings that are bigger, and then some cabinet card paintings where I paint on these old photos and transform them into like pop culture characters. And we'll have a few other things, maybe some prints and stuff, but that's what I've been spending a lot of this year on, and what the remainder of the summer will be for me. So yeah, that's my priority now. So yeah, if you're in New York, definitely see if you can come to that. I'll post about it on social media when it's closer. And it's hard because I can't really share a lot of images right now, because a lot of stuff you kind of want to keep secret until basically the pre-sale. So it makes it a little hard to kind of have stuff to share, But yeah, that's what I got going on right now.
I'd imagine a lot of prep work, especially for a solo gallery, right?
It's a lot of work, yeah. It's not the biggest space, and we talked about it, and I'm trying to do it in a way that I don't kill myself, and I think it'll be good. I think I'm going to have the perfect amount of stuff, so
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
looking forward to it.
All right, was there any piece that you've worked on, project or just individual piece for you, that you felt was the most challenging? And is it because you're trying to do certain hurdles that you haven't done before, or just the scope of the project? Like, was there any project that just stood out, like maybe I will never do that again?
I mean, I did one commission like 10 years ago that was like about 7 feet tall by 10 feet wide, and that was just demanding because of the scope of it, and it was incredibly involved. So I had to do that one in my living room of my old place because it wouldn't fit in my studio. And sometimes I'd have to sit on the floor and stuff. I didn't have an easel that could accommodate the canvas that big at the time. So it was just cumbersome. Not that I wouldn't do anything like it again, but it was probably the hardest one I've done in the most amount of time I've spent on a painting. I'm real happy with how the piece came out. I do have a current canvas that I'd like to do, and it's about 6 feet tall and about 4 feet wide. So nowhere near as big as that one, but it's incredibly involved and has dozens of characters in it, and many of them are likenesses of like famous people, you know. 6 feet tall sounds really big, but some of the faces are only this big, and that's very hard for me. I can do a likeness if it's this big, no problem. This big, really hard. So it should actually be like 10 feet tall, which I cannot accommodate in my studio.
Wow.
But even at 6 feet tall, I have yet to begin it, and I don't know if I'm going to tackle it because it's at least a 3-month commitment. And, you know, if I had like somebody, a buyer who wanted to commission it, I would do it. But it's a big time investment for a piece that I don't know if I could sell it, and it would have to be pretty pricey because of the amount of time I'm going to put into it.
Right.
But I do feel the need to do it because I think it's just, I want to do it.
You always have to challenge yourself, right?
It's not that, I just want to do it. I've been wanting to do this painting for a while, and so I think I will do it at some point. Maybe after my show, I'll have to see. Sometimes you just have to paint the thing.
Yeah. I know a lot of times, your fan base, audience, whatever, collector base might have a certain favorite or a favorite couple of pieces. But is there one that you've produced that's your personal favorite?
I don't have one personal favorite. I probably have a top 10 list or something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm not going to say what they are, but you know, the one on the cover of my last book, Prison of the Mind, is definitely on that list, and we talked about it earlier. That's the one with the 2 jokers. That piece was really magical. It was a ton of work, but I love how it came out. And like I think I said earlier, I'm going to visit that original painting tonight because the guy who owns it is here in Phoenix. So I haven't
Super
seen
cool.
that painting since I shipped it out 5 years ago, and so that I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I have a print of it at home hanging on my wall, a canvas print that's 1-to-1, actual same size as the original, and it looks amazing. So it's not like I haven't seen the image big, but it's not the same as seeing the actual painting.
Right.
So yeah, that's one of my favorites for sure.
Huh. Is there anything off the wall that you remember, like remembering the last stroke of every painting that you finished? Is that like something that burns into your brain, or is there anything like that that's just...
What's funny is sometimes I'll see a piece and I'll remember a certain part of it. I remember what I was listening to when I worked on that part, whether it was a song or an audiobook or a podcast.
Yeah.
And sometimes I won't know I remembered it until I see that image again, and then it'll come back to me.
Huh. It's crazy how music and stuff does that. It's like the soundtrack of our lives, and they pair
Or
so
just the
well.
combination of the audio and the visual, like takes you back to that moment, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
So that can be interesting and funny.
Wow, that's cool. In your opinion, what makes something truly collectible, something truly unique, something that is more than just a picture?
Well, you mean if you're just talking about artwork? I mean, anything can be collectible, right?
I think from a viewer, an appreciator standpoint, the work and skill set, because it's not just the 6 hours that you might have spent on that piece, right? It's the 10,000 hours that you took to get to that skill set. Like that body of effort that got you to that one place, from an appreciator of art, is meaningful to me. From an artist standpoint, is there anything that's like you want to see that in each of your piece, if at all possible, whatever that might be?
No, I mean, I'm just trying to do the best job I can on every piece I do. Like I don't think I've ever like finished a piece because I had to time-wise and I wasn't happy with the finish on it. Maybe as an illustrator I did that, but not in gallery work. I'm not gonna put something out there for show and for sale if I'm not satisfied with it. I think things are collectible because people treasure them and it means something to them. or the artist means something to them, or both, right? Like, so, people want a brick from the Canyon Club in Liverpool because of the Beatles and how much their music means to that person.
Right.
It's just a piece of brick, but it's more than that
Yep.
because of the emotional connection. So if you feel an emotional connection with my work, a limited edition print or a guitar with my painting on it means something to you and is special and is collectible and valuable. And if enough people feel that way, then they can be more valuable because they'll compete to buy them and resell them and stuff. That's why anything's collectible, because people appreciate it and have to compete to acquire them. If it's available in large quantity, supply and demand.
Right.
So I love comic books, and some of them are hard to get and very meaningful. I have like the first Spider-Man comic book. It's there's not too many of those around,
No,
and
yeah.
the ones that are often beat up, and mine looks pretty good, and it's worth a lot of money,
That's
and it
huge,
means a
yeah.
lot to me, and I don't ever want to sell it. So, because Spider-Man means so much to me.
Yeah.
Comics in general do and did and were influential on me. Another person would see that and it would mean nothing to them because they didn't grow up reading comics and they don't care about Spider-Man.
Right.
If you gave it to them, they'd be like, cool, I'll sell it and make money, but
Right.
it doesn't mean anything to them. So, one person's going to want to buy this guitar with my painting on it because they love guitars, they love the image maybe, they love Tool maybe a combination. Another person won't mean anything to them.
True.
That's
Yeah.
what makes stuff collectible, and that's why I collect art and guitars. Ones I appreciate, whether I appreciate the artist or the instrument itself or both.
Well, it is certainly a beautiful piece, so I'm excited to have you on board, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to.
You guys did a great
it.
job. It looks amazing on the guitar. I'm really happy with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and we had, obviously a great artist to make it look good.
Thank you.
Thanks for being in, and I'm sure you're going to be back at some point, and best of luck.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
I repeat that over and over to anyone who will listen in the music world.
Yeah.
For bands, I don't think a lot of bands realize sometimes, I'm not taking away any skill or talent for any given band. But sometimes the chemistry of the sound of those 4 or 5 people, whoever, they struck gold. And yeah, everybody loves to venture off really far, right? Because we all have wide tastes for music. But what your audience is loving when they hear you, if you're gonna do something way off a base, side project, do a side project.
Right, yeah.
Because you can lose your audience.
I've thought about that.
One-
I've thought about if I do try something like radically different from me, that I would do it under like a pseudonym. But I haven't done that. I don't really feel the need yet to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be a side project.
Yeah, and I almost feel like it probably isn't as extreme in the art world. I think you can get away with it, so wouldn't want to scare you off.
No, but you're
that
totally
advice.
right. I mean, if I wanted to do cute kitten paintings, like really cutesy, not
Yeah.
even like realistic, but like super stylized and graphic,
Right.
I couldn't do that as me.
Yeah.
If I was going to do more like realistic, that's close enough to what I do. I could probably do it. So, but yeah, if I had a very dramatically different look and
Yeah.
content,
Because strangely, I think people's attention span for things like that is sort of, you can extrapolate their attention spans on phones or whatever, but for something like this, like 1 album or 2 albums that are completely off track, all of a sudden, they're not even paying attention to your next album that comes out because they know you went off the deep end. So if you released a couple of, completely different stylistic pieces, somebody might just say, okay, I guess he's done doing what I like. I'll just focus on his early stuff and I won't pay attention to his new stuff anymore. And he potentially lose audiences.
absolutely, yeah.
It's kind of, it sucks in a way, but it's the weird artist-audience relationship it's symbiotic in a way, but if if it detaches, it's hard to get back. You know, it's hard to gain it in the first place, to gain somebody's attention and appreciation. But then you shake them with anything, sometimes it could be just as hard getting them back.
Totally.
So, yeah, I say that
For
all
some
the time
people,
to bands.
I think for some people it's easier than others. You know, some bands, you know, Tool
Yeah.
is always drop D.
Yeah.
They're just, for whatever reason, they're into that.
Yeah.
That's their sound.
And their
you
evolution.
recognize it right away. You know?
Right.
Some bands want to do a range from, you know, electronic drums to real acoustic drums and like you name it, right? And heavy and
Yeah.
acoustic. So it kind of depends on your inclination.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
some
And-
artists visually the same thing, right? They just want to paint one kind of thing, and some artists want to paint everything.
Sure.
I'm somewhere in the middle. You know, I have a pretty big range of interests visually, but less than some people and more than others. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy that, you know, anytime you talk about human psychology and interpretation of things, and it starts to get hairy, because I also believe that we're in a weird evolutionary period of like a in-between spot. Like, we're overly emotional, you know, and so it's like, all right, we're adapting to having emotions and having opinions, but we haven't quite yet mastered it, and we haven't developed that far in.
Oh,
So
I've
it's like,
mastered mine.
oh, have you? Congratulations. I'm going to have to start talking to you more. So
Yeah, I'm gonna offer a course.
Very cool. Well, you already have been a teacher, so that should go swimmingly.
I was kidding. I definitely have not mastered
No,
my
yeah.
emotions. Just ask my son.
Yeah. Anyone that genuinely says that they've mastered their emotions, I'd be highly skeptical.
Yeah.
Do you, when you decide that you're going to create a new piece, do you do any kind of like research into topics or anything to try and unearth some potential motivation or topic, or do you just go based on whatever ideas that are the seedling in your brain, and then you just kind of grow them without pulling from other stuff? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, you know, where's most of your source of inspiration? Do you go digging for things, or do you just...
Yeah, I keep a folder of stuff on my computer. It's huge, and it has a lot of stuff that I've started on and just put it down. And a lot of times I just go back through that and I find something from 3 years ago that kind of jumps out, like, oh, maybe I can play with this a little more.
Yeah.
You know,
Sounds
it interests me again.
Sounds like my riff library.
Yeah, it's very similar. And I've heard musicians talk about the same exact thing, right?
Yeah.
They'll use their phone to record just messing around on their acoustic, and then they take one of those things and develop it.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, and it works for me. So a lot of times I'm just going through my image library.
Yeah. Rough sketches kind of thing?
It's a combination of like found photos I shot, and then Photoshop files that are collages of
Nice.
images I found or shot and drew and changed and combined. So yeah, it's usually starts with a visual thing for me that comes from that library. And sometimes, yeah, it's an image I saw somewhere that I found online or whatever, that it's a starting point.
Yeah.
But it's usually a visual starting point, not a conceptual one. And like I said before, the concept emerges as I develop the visual.
Yeah. So you do commissions. So are those commissions, how much guidance or request from the commission?
Client?
Client? Yeah, let's go with client.
Yeah, it varies. Usually I have a lot of freedom, but I've done some where they want a painting of a certain like historical figure or pop culture character or something. But you know, usually I have a lot of freedom. But yeah, like I did one, you know, that piece we were talking about with the two jokers. I had a client friend that really liked it and wanted another one with the two jokers, but a whole different like setting and stuff. So I did a very kind of similar but very different piece at the same time.
Nice.
with them again in a different room and a different setup.
That's kind of cool because it's almost like you get to revisit a piece and see how you might be able to do it differently.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was still characters and themes I was interested in. It wasn't like doing, I don't know, My Little Pony or something.
Right.
Which, I probably wouldn't have done. Maybe it'd be cool.
You got a unicorn pony on that cover of the...
Right, but realistic one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the one element I changed from my comp to the finished product. In the comp, the pony's hair was totally different, and I didn't like it, and the whole neck was showing, and it was boring. So I went and changed that on the canvas after I already had finished the comp to make the hair going over the neck, and I like it much better that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, the finished piece came out great.
Thank you. Yeah, it lives here in Arizona.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Very cool. So do you keep track of where all your master prints?
If I know,
Master
if I've
prints?
sold it directly to someone, then I usually know where it is unless they've sold it later.
That's cool.
But sometimes when a gallery sells a painting, you don't know, who
yeah.
bought it.
Yeah. I'd imagine it'd be kind of cool to have a map of the world where you thumbtack where you've been. Well, you can thumbtack where all your
art lives.
paintings- Yeah. Where all
Yeah,
your
no, it's super cool. I know, there's a number of countries, but there's probably more countries that I don't know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. Because, it's your art's an extension of you. So it's almost like you sort of exist in these other places.
It is. I'm gonna visit that painting at this guy's house tomorrow, and it's a little bit like seeing someone I used to really care about a lot
Yeah,
for a
I haven't
minute,
seen it in a
because
while,
it's
right.
months of my life went into that thing
I
on their
bet.
wall.
What would you say is the average time frame for, obviously the size of the piece is going to make a difference, right? But
And the complexity, yeah, it could be like 2 or 3 weeks to like 2 months usually.
Wow.
Yeah,
And that's
a few or
daily?
3 months, but usually 2 months is about the most.
And that's daily work.
Like 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy how much time can be invested in something like that. But then it's immortal after that, right? Once you
Yeah,
finish.
I mean, I envy artists who have a fast style. I have a slow style because I'm realistic, unfortunately. But yeah, it'd be great if I could do more in that amount of time,
Yeah.
just from a practical.
I
point
love
of view.
surrealism. I think it's my favorite. Just because you can then place what is interpreted by the mind as something real, like, oh, that's a real person, that's a real whatever. But then it's such twisted reality in the settings or in what's going on. It's just, it's my favorite genre, so I love it. So I could totally understand how long that process could take, trying to make things so detailed and so.
And that's the painting part. I'm not even really counting the Photoshop time, which can be a while, but I don't really count that time up because usually I'll work on that stuff in the morning, like for an hour, and then the rest of the day I'm painting something else. So it's an hour or two on concept of a new thing, and then I paint the thing that's going. And then
Gotcha.
tomorrow I spend another hour or two on it, but I don't just work on the new idea in Photoshop all day usually. So
Yeah.
it's hard to measure that,
Right. That's true. I know I never went full 100% of my attention into either music or art, but I dabbled enough to where, I got a certain skill set and I thought, oh, okay, maybe most people would call themselves a musician, call themselves an artist. In my family, I have both great artists and great musicians. And just right there, I don't even have to go to the outside world and start looking at your stuff online and the level of art that you create. Already, I never wanted to call myself either one, even as a hobbyist.
But
'Cause I
see,
felt
that's
like I was
comparing,
making- I
right?
know,
It's
exactly.
like there's no point. You
There is
could
no
be an
point.
artist different from me, not better or worse, just
Right.
different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm different from Shepard Fairey. I'm not better than him, and I'm not worse. We're
Right.
different.
Just different. Yeah.
He makes a lot more money than me,
Yeah.
but you might like his work better, and this person might like mine better, and I don't care. Whoever,
Right.
whatever. Like I'm just doing my thing. There's place for all of us. There's place for your music. Are you going to be Adam Jones? I don't know.
All right.
But if you keep immediately comparing the next song you write, like, this is not as good as Tool,
Yeah.
then eventually you're going to stop, right? So like,
I'm going to thwart my own development by doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, for sure.
but it,
Yeah.
you know, it's understandable. It's the world we live in.
Yeah. Right. Lesson to come out of this is do not compare yourself. Just keep muscling through, right? So I mean, you can't get to your level without doing that, right? You just can't. So you gotta.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of artists that self-loathe, and they still make it to a talent level that's insane. But I gotta imagine that that's the exception. You know, you gotta have at least some confidence in yourself or something to push yourself through.
I think so. You have to have some core self-confidence. And yeah, we all have, you know, weaknesses and some kind of need to show everybody what we can do, whether it's performing or just making the thing. But I think comedians probably are more fucked up.